If you are enjoying the Exploring Bethlehem series, we ask that you hit the like and subscribe buttons. That way, you'll be helping our algorithm and help us to reach a wider audience. You'll also be alerted when new episodes drop, so you'll never miss one. Thanks, and keep watching.
For generations, the neighborhood barbershop was more than a place for a haircut. It was a small sanctuary of routine, a place where men gathered for a trim, perhaps a shave, and a few minutes of conversation about the Eagles, the weather, or the price of steel. On Bethlehem's west side, at 1915 West Broad Street, stood a modest one-chair shop operated by 67-year-old Wheeler Eroh. Eroh's routine was steady and predictable. He lived in nearby Salisbury Township and drove 10 minutes each morning, opening his shop between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, 6 days a week. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest, reliable, and familiar. On December 13th, 1967, just a week before Christmas, there was no reason to think the day would be any different. One of Eroh's regular customers was Elmer Cool, who lived just a few blocks away in the Park Ridge Homes development. Though Eroh typically didn't keep appointments, he made an exception for Elmer. Cool wanted to look sharp for the holidays. That morning, at about 10 a.m., Cool stopped briefly at Pulley's 5 and 10 cent store a few doors down. The owner, John Pulley, was a retired Bethlehem police sergeant. They exchanged greetings. Everything felt ordinary. 10 minutes later, at 10:10, Elmer Cool reached the barbershop. The door was unlocked. Inside, he found his friend lying on the floor, bleeding heavily from his head. At first, Cool assumed Wheeler had slipped and fallen. He ran back to the 5 and dime. Police were called. An ambulance arrived. Wheeler Eroh was transported to the hospital. An hour later, he was dead, without ever regaining consciousness. It was only after the autopsy that the truth emerged. This was no accident. Eroh had suffered repeated blows to the head. The cause of death: blunt force trauma, multiple skull fractures. Someone had beaten a 67-year-old barber to death in his own shop. The tiny neighborhood business, once a place of comfort and routine, became a crime scene. Police moved quickly. Investigators determined that Eroh had last been seen alive at approximately 9:45 a.m. The murder was believed to have occurred between 9:45 and 10:10, a narrow 25-minute window. 9 detectives were assigned to the case. Physical evidence was sent to the state police barracks for analysis. Robbery soon emerged as the likely motive. Eroh was known to carry substantial cash. His wallet, believed to contain at least $300, was missing. Witnesses reported seeing a car stop in front of the shop, pick up a man, and speed away. The quiet West Side neighborhood had been shattered by something both violent and brazen. On January 5th, 1968, police announced an arrest. 18-year-old Daniel Reagan of Bethlehem was charged with robbery and murder. He lived only a few blocks away, in the same Park Ridge Homes neighborhood as Elmer Cool. Also arrested was his 16-year-old brother Timothy Reagan, charged as an accessory. The murder weapon was identified as a dumbbell, used to strike Eroh repeatedly. It had been discarded in a wooded area between the barbershop and the housing development. Blood evidence and Daniel Reagan's fingerprints tied the weapon to the crime. investigators learned that the crime had been planned as a robbery, though perhaps not intended to become a killing. A week before the murder, Timothy Reagan had reportedly visited the shop asking for change. During that visit, he observed that the elderly barber carried a large amount of cash. Wheeler Eroh had unknowingly shown his wallet to someone who would later help orchestrate his death. In a haunting twist, many involved knew one another. John Pulley, the retired police sergeant, had been aware of the Reagan brothers' delinquent behavior during his years on the force. Elmer Cool knew the family from the neighborhood, and Wheeler Eroh, friendly, trusting, reliable, had unknowingly crossed paths with them just days before. This was not a crime committed by strangers drifting through town. It was local, familiar, close to home. The question that lingers is not who did it. That question was answered. The question is why? Why strike an elderly barber repeatedly with a weight meant for exercise? Why escalate robbery into brutality? Why shatter a quiet neighborhood in the week before Christmas? Perhaps greed. Perhaps panic. Perhaps youthful recklessness turned irreversible in a matter of seconds. The crime may have been planned. The murder may not have been. But the result was the same. A small shop closed forever. A routine broken. A community reminded that violence does not always come from far away. Sometimes it comes from just down the block. Today, few may remember Wheeler Eroh, but for years his one-chair barber shop was a place of trust and familiarity. In telling his story, we remember not only the crime, but the man. A barber, a neighbor, a fixture of West Broad Street. And a life ended in 25 brutal minutes on a December morning in 1967.